Hello, my name is Marla Lopley, and I'm the Education Liaison Librarian, which means I am your librarian. And I'm very excited to be helping you with your education thesis. This is the first video, and we're going to talk about choosing a topic. Sometimes that can be the hardest part of the process, so hopefully this video is helpful for you, and you are welcome to contact me if you have any further questions. So I'm going to show you a course guide that I made just for this class that you will be accessing through all of your semesters in the thesis course, and it includes my contact information as well. So from the library homepage, library.ecok.edu, you will click Library Research Guides, and then Education and Thesis. So on this main page, you have information about the library, but also my contact information. So you can email me. Here's my phone number if you'd like to call, or you can drop by my office if you'd like. I'm on the 3rd floor of the library, and you can schedule an appointment with me if you'd like, and that could be a phone appointment, an in-person appointment, or an online appointment through Skype or WebEx or Zoom. All right, so let's move on to choosing a topic. So some people may think that choosing a topic is a one-time decision. You find something you're interested in, and that's your topic. But if you've done any research before, you know it's not quite that simple. It's a process that involves quite a bit of research, actually, just to choose your topic. So if you're not familiar with that process, I have a video here that explains it very well. And I also have a worksheet that we're going to walk through today, and I'm going to walk through an example of how an initial question changes into a different question based on the research that I find. So I'm going to go ahead and download this worksheet, and we'll walk through it together. So my initial topic for today will be, do information literacy classes, which is what I'm teaching right now, does that increase retention at a university or the graduation rates? So there is my question, and my search term is going to be, starting out, information literacy and retention. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the library homepage and type that in the search box. Here we go. And wow, this first article seems very relevant, but the second article, I'm getting something about health literacy, because information and literacy are separated. So I'm going to go ahead and narrow down my results by putting quotation marks around information literacy, which will search that as a phrase instead of individual words. So I searched that, and I still get some information that's not relevant because it says information literacy in the subjects. So I'm going to limit to the universities and say higher education. I could also type in university or college. There's lots of synonyms you can use, probably for any search terms you come up with. So be sure to think of your synonyms and use those. So here, I have some pretty good search results, especially when I narrow to peer-reviewed and say I want just things in the last 5 years. I could narrow by date. And this is a very manageable number of articles. So I can go through here and read the abstracts right here. And let's say that I find out that lots of people have asked the question if information literacy skills increase retention, but they've come up with different answers. Some people say they do, some people say they don't. There's lots of well-crafted research studies. Sometimes they're using the same method and they come up with different answers. And so I'm trying to think of reasons why that might be. And so here under the new questions area, that's where I write down some possible ideas that I have. And maybe even in the discussion section or the conclusion section, the authors might propose their own ideas, or they may suggest ideas for future study. So I could write down those questions here. And let's pretend that one of the questions I come up with is that information students with strong information literacy skills, when they come into college as freshmen, are more likely to graduate than students who don't have strong information literacy skills. So that would be my new question is, are students with strong information literacy skills more likely to graduate? And so I would start over with search terms, and I would see if the literature answers anything about that topic. And if they don't, or if, say, there's just one study or a couple studies, but they use a small sample size and it's not generalizable to the larger audience, that's not sufficiently answered. So I could still repeat that question and use a different method and a different population, and I would still be contributing something instead of replicating something. So the topic you choose won't be something that you find a lot of articles on. It'll be something that you notice there's a gap in the literature. It's usually called a knowledge gap. And that's what your question will answer, your research question. But then for your literature review, you still need to find articles that support your reasoning behind that research question, which we will talk about that more here in a little bit. But first I want to finish the worksheet. So this other sources space, let's say in my articles I read about standards for information literacy, or I read about a law that was passed that mandates information literacy to be taught. I would want to write down that the name of the standards or the name of the law and look those up later. And I may not be looking them up in library databases. I may be using just a general internet search to find out more information, because that would have an important impact on my topic and it may influence my question or my methods. So then once you find a question that's not answered in the literature, like you're not finding articles about it, or if you do find articles about it and the studies are fairly weak or there's a certain aspect that they haven't touched on, and then you see if it's a question you're interested in and would it provide meaningful information. You don't want to do your study and then the results don't really make a difference for anyone. So think about those things and then write down your final research question here. And then before you set your mind on that question, you want to make sure it's something you can actually study and measure. So decide what your observables are. So for our example question, we would need a method for measuring information literacy skills, because we need to determine which students have high skills and which students have low skills. We would need a method of collecting that information literacy skill from freshman students. So once we have the tool that we use, we need to actually have a population of students to measure it with. And then we would need a method of collecting graduation rates for those same students. So since it usually takes 4 years to graduate college, this would be a 4-year study. If I was going to measure it specifically like this. If I needed to do it in 1 year, I might be able to find some ways to do that by retroactively getting data on a certain test about graduating seniors when they were freshmen. But this is just an example of, you may not want to use that research question because it would be a 4-year study. So thinking about your observables is very important at this stage. So you've done all of this research, you've kind of skimmed through a bunch of articles, and now you have to do a literature review. But your literature review won't be the same as this research that you've already done. You'll be using different terms, and I'm going to illustrate that for you. So let's say that I have this one study, in the example I used, oh, there it is, that I used earlier, where it studied exactly what I'm asking, but it was a very small population, in this case, Singapore. And I want to make sure that the results they found are generalizable to the United States. So I would use this study in my literature review, but I would also find studies that support the reasoning behind my question. So for example, I may find studies that describe any kind of skill that increases graduation rates or impacts graduation rates, decreases them possibly. And I would see if information literacy skills are associated with those skills. So let's say reading skills positively impact graduation. Well, reading is a part of information literacy, so that would support my idea that information literacy skills would impact graduation. I may also look for studies that support one of my observables. So for example, I would look for an article that evaluates a tool used to assess information literacy skills. And you can get more of an idea of what kind of articles you'll be looking for your literature review by reading some literature reviews in the articles that you find during your topic selection process. And after you read 2 or 3, maybe 4, you'll get kind of an idea of how they use articles that support their research question, but that aren't exactly about the same topic. And if you have any questions about that, please contact me. I know that's a lot to take in at one time. And now I want to show you a couple of places to get ideas if you need them. So Education Week Online and the Chronicle of Higher Education are news sources for things that are going on in the K-12 world for Education Week Online, or the higher education world for Chronicle of Higher Education. And we pay for both of these sources, so you are welcome to use them for free. If you use a link that's not one of these links, you would be asked to pay for it. So use one of these links and you should be good to go once you log in with your MyECU login. And these sources are not peer-reviewed sources, but it would help you know what's being said about your topic right now in the news. Or if you wanted ideas for topics, this would be a good place to go, because you'd be finding something that's currently relevant to the field or to the world of K-12 or higher ed. And with that, I will leave you to beginning your topic selection process, and I will see you in the next video here on this tab, which is about searching in the databases, kind of the tips and tricks, nuts and bolts type thing, some of the services we have for distance learners, and keeping yourself organized during your research. So be sure to join me for that video on the search tab.